Well, this is still your top station. My name is Damirez. It's your virtual funhouse on your radio. Remember, you can catch us live on Facebook. All you have to do is just to go to facebook.com/Top Radio 90.9 for live streaming. Okay, and if you want to take us anywhere you want to go to using your mobile phones, all you have to do, activate your browser www.mobile.909topradio.com. Alright, for smartphone users, talking about BlackBerry phones, iPad, iPod, iPod Touch, your Android phones, and also your Java phones, and some of your Nokia phones that can browse. Alright, so take us anywhere you want to go to. It's your top station. On the Shindig today, I have experts in the house. We're going to be talking about the recent massacre in the small peaceful town of Baga in Borno State by the JTF, alright, against the Boko Haram insurgents. Alright, so we're going to be taking an insight. We're going to look at all angles to the sides of this story. Alright, and then of course you can be part of the show. You can call in live on the show 0809-670-2550 for live calls, and also you can text on the show. Alright, you can text 080-999-31035. And also on Twitter, you can tweet to Top Radio. Alright, that's Top Radio 909. Alright, that's easy, straightforward. Top Radio 909. And also you can tweet to me. Alright, that's Damirez 909 FM. Alright, Khadija is also much around, so you can tweet to Khadija, also Khadija R. And that's on Twitter. Alright, so straight to the matter on ground today. Talking about the recent battle between the JTF and the Boko Haram insurgents. Alright, so there's been so much of outcry, from left, right, and center. So much of concern. Even the figures right now, it's like nobody's really sure how many casualties. And then a lot of civilians who have been displaced from their homes and have also died as a result of the issue. We have in the house Mr. Chuks Maha. Mr. Chuks Maha is a security broadcaster and also a security consultant, and he's also a producer and a presenter of Watchdog and Security 247. Right, so Mr. Chuks, welcome to the Shindig.
Well, Damirez, thank you. It's a pleasure being here around with you.
All right, and we also have Mr. Wafai J. Roberts. He's an international lawyer, specializes in IP/IT. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Damirez.
Okay, so I'm talking about the recent clash between the JTF and the Boko Haram insurgents in the peaceful town of Baga in Borno. People have been trading blames. So I'd like to ask Mr. Chuks Maha, security consultant, how have you seen this? Who do you think is to blame anyway, for the losses, casualties, loss of property, displacement of the indigents, and all the havoc that has been wreaked in the community?
Well, the bottom line simply, it's we, the people, are to be blamed. Nothing more than that. We can't blame the government, we can't blame the JTF, neither shall we blame the so-called faceless Boko Haram sect. The truth is that these hoodlums, insurgents, or whatever name we choose to call them, are no spirits. They lurk around the streets, they live within the community, and even if they infiltrate into the community, somebody or some people get to see them when they're coming in. So the bottom line, we should blame ourselves. The people who saw them, who refused to report about these activities of strange elements within their immediate environs, who allowed them to pervade their ways into committance of this crime. We want to call it a genocide against man and the people, the inhabitants there, that has led to quantum losses, which cannot be put in financial terms. The life's gone, the property's gone. But don't forget too, the JTF, the security arm that are there, have a responsibility to do what? Two things: to protect lives and properties as if they were policemen, but to ensure that the sovereignty of the state called Nigeria remains intact. And that's why they quoted that name, Operation Restore, to ensure order comes back into being. Flush anything out that is an element that will bring about some element of distortion.
Okay, and talking about flushing, and how about cases whereby unarmed civilians, are caught in this process of flushing?
Yes, I'm not holding brief for the JTF. Yes, right. We talk about ROE, rules of engagement. But the truth is, how do you determine who is carrying a firearm or not? We know, information reaching us, that even within the sect, they also use women to carry out their plots. Now, you can't tell based on their form of dressing. They don't wear conventional oriental clothes that you can tell if they're carrying an assault rifle beneath it or not. They wear free-flowing clothes which can conceal any kind of weapon you choose to carry. Now, in the course of doing this, you can't really tell who is a civilian and who is an activist, because Boko Haram men do not wear uniforms. Okay. So the rules of engagement in real, true warfare cannot hold precisely. Okay, so
rules of engagement, as you've said, okay, just elements of the rules.
Which means that you cannot shoot an unarmed civilian.
All right.
Especially you cannot shoot anybody from the back.
Okay.
Whether it's carrying arms or not, that's the first rule. Two, the rule you cannot shoot civilians. But this time, these rules too cannot hold. Those are Geneva Convention rules. But we're talking about a place where the other person or the other party does not even respect these rules. And two, like I rightly said, you cannot in any way determine whether the person is indeed an enemy or not.
Okay, so Mr. Wafai, I'd like your own take on this issue. Talking about who do you think is to blame for this issue?
I think I quite disagree with the security consultant on a point. Now, the issue in question is whether or not this crisis is one of an international nature. That's where I would like to look at the issue. Okay. The JTF was not alone in the suppression of the act of terrorism in Baga.
Okay.
We're all aware that there was a joint military task force involving, thank you very much, involving both the Nigerian and the Chadian military. So now the issue is such that the crisis itself has assumed one of an international dimension. So that whilst on the one hand we are saying that the rules of engagement, because humanitarian laws equally apply to both national and international issues. Now the point here is whether or not JTF, the multi-task force, was aware that these people, the civilians in question, were armed or unarmed is not a question, but they ought to have known. It's not just, it's no news really that our security agencies, whether in Nigeria or Africa generally, we are ill-equipped, whether emotionally, intellectually, and so they are not so well equipped to combat such crimes. Now, I believe, I'm not an expert in security, but every or any layman should know that before an attack of that magnitude be conducted, there ought to have been certain intelligence gathering. You need to have gathered information. How sufficient was the information gathered on whether or not those people were there? Now, the individuals, the civilians who were they aware? Did they know that these guys had infiltrated their midst and for whatever reason? So you cannot really tell whether or not these civilians actually aided the terrorists. That's why they ought to have been cautioned. There is something called the proportionality doctrine in international law. If you are going to want to ward off a terrorist attack, the use of force must be such that it is proportionate with the actual destruction caused as a result of the suppression. Or can it be said that the multi-task force used proportionate force, that's the word, was proportionate force utilized in the suppression of the act of those terrorists in Baga? Now that's the question we need to answer. Now I'm well aware that the government has actually ordered an investigation to be conducted, but until we arrive at the true fact, there seems to be some discordance in what actually is the fact. Some say only 30 were killed, 6 civilians. Others have said that it's 185, but we cannot say. I can only say from the legal perspective that, see, it's international law. They have an obligation to respect human rights and uphold the rules of international humanitarian law in the suppression of the act. They have not done so. Somebody has to bear responsibility. I think that's it.
Okay, so Mr. Chuks Maha, security consultant, just having listened to what the international lawyer said, talking about Mr. Wafai, what do you have to say to this?
Well, it's unfortunate because we're seeing things from different perspectives. I'm looking at from the security angle. If we must say no to crime, we must fight it with all vigor you can have. There are no loopholes about it. Should we welcome this form of insurgency, this form of crime? The answer should be no. He's talking about the issue of the level of aggression meted against these persons. What are the loss of lives this sector of people have committed? The kind of fear imposed on people. Now we are losing business in the country of international dimension, locally and foreignly. We have capital flight, people are moving, we have displaced families, people are going into grief because they've lost persons with their family. This cannot be quantified in any terms. And of course, we're looking up to the government. The main bane of any government anywhere in the world is the provision of security for its citizens. So I think that if the federal government is serious, they should show us the level of seriousness in what they're doing. And of course, the JTF, the Joint Task Force, is carrying out an instruction or a policy by the federal government in ensuring that the lives of Nigerians, wherever they are within the territorial define of this country, are safe, and two, to flush these insurgents out. How they do it, I don't know. That's a different ballgame entirely. My friend, my lawyer, is saying the issue of security information. That's true. We talk about gathering of information, reconnaissance. Yes, that's true. But the question there is, how reliable is that information? You're going to a territory or a terrain that is not well familiar, or you're not well familiar with. You're going against a person or people that you're not too accustomed to their custom. Like I said, their mode of dressing. If you're an engineer of the place, then yes, you're better equipped. But if you're not and you've been drafted in there into the JTF, remember, it's either your life or their life. And like any other soldier, he still wants to remain alive.
Okay, but talking about the multinational joint task force, Mr. Maha, if we can recall several battles, Afghanistan, Iraq, talking about battles in the Middle East, and Americans, British troops, French troops were drafted. These are Europeans, these are Caucasians, different from Africans or different from people that stay in the Middle East. They have gathered enough intelligence. They've gone in there, they've seen that the women sometimes hide the weapons in their burqas, or they know that sometimes children even know how to hurl grenades and the improvised explosive devices. So, but we are Africans, you know. For the multinational joint task force, they try to get a collaboration from Cameroon, Chad. But these are Africans in Africa. I mean, why should it take so much for them to understand the terrain? That's just how I'm saying it.
Yeah, I get your drift now. But first and foremost, we should know we're fighting something. Whether you want to look at it from the political angle, the economic angle, the security angle, this is a menace that has come into a global dimension. We talk of Al-Qaeda, we now talk of Boko Haram. The truth is, we all need to nip it before it grows beyond the level of where anybody can curtail it. It's like a grain monster, and it's growing up in very rapid, in fact, we could put it in mathematical terms, in geometrical progression. And we, on the other hand, the governments of the day, whichever part of the world they are in, are only growing and learning about it in arithmetic proportion. So at any point in time, we'll find it very difficult to catch up, let alone suppress it totally. So the more we can try to reduce their spread, curb them, and if possible, which I know is quite difficult, to put them into extinction. That is the issue. To ensure that wherever they go, they will meet with resistance. So they'll think twice before they spread into other areas. That is, to me, the major point. It's going to be a heinous task in trying to combat them. We're trying to curtail their activities. In other words, in our bid to ensure they do not spread.
Okay, so with your past experiences with security and their operations, you know, it seems looking at this recent one now, you know, I just need to ask, do you think the armed forces, Nigerian armed forces, sometimes, you know, act, you know, outside the approval of the presidency? Because it's like something happens, and then I know you are not a government official, but looking at the security platform, do you think there are occasions where you just go and do stuff and without getting approval? Because the way it looks like to people is like even the presidency may not have known, you know,
the true dimension.
Yes, yes,
that's very true. See, you're given an order. The president gives an order. Say, go get this done. Okay. The information goes to the chief of staff, either the military chief of staff or the army. He goes out. He tells his boys. Now they're not in the field. The boys in the field get the information. So being theoretical is one aspect. The other aspect is in practicality. That's being real. You're seeing the thing live. Now, what you've been told to do might not be applicable at that point in time. So the issue now comes the use of your discretion. The use of your discretion now comes into play